Hey guys, welcome back to S2TV. I am Stuart Breeding, and this is part 4 of our ongoing series on the squat. Who would have thought there would have been this much to cover? But we're getting into the hip, and I thought it only fair that we break up the hip in a couple of different videos. Otherwise, it'll be an hour long, and nobody will ever watch it. So today we're going to talk about quadricep, hamstring, adductor, and a little bit of IT band. So getting right into it, the quadricep is not a muscle that, in my experience, I've seen really needs a lot of corrective exercise. It's usually an overactive muscle in people. So when we're talking about overactive muscle groups, we need to talk about stretching, self-myofascial release, trigger point therapies, things like that. So the best stretch that I have found for the quadricep is simply by sitting in a Japanese meditative posture called seiza. Seiza is not the easiest thing to get into for most people. Now, the toes need to be touching, the heels are together, and then all the weight is suspended on top of the ankles. And this can be hard for people. It's a great quad stretch. It's a great ankle stretch. If you have issues with it, you can take a pillow and put it between your butt and ankles and slowly increase the angle or pressure on your feet. Now, a modification of this, or a progression, would be to take one leg out and extend it out to the side, and this will actually stretch adductor while applying more pressure on the quadricep. It is a great stretch. It just takes some time to get into. You can also arch back and drive the hip up and get into a deeper quadricep and also hip flexor. Now, when we're talking about self-myofascial release for the quad, I think absolutely the best way to go is with a stick. So I'll take a dowel rod, I'll sit on the end of the bench, I'll start up in my hip flexor and work my way down the quad. And usually I'll go straight down the center. I'll kind of hang out around the patella tendon or the quadricep tendon right above the knee, where a lot of people experience patellofemoral discomfort or some pain. And if you rotate it to the inside, rotate the stick to the inside, this is the VMO, the vastus medialis oblique. This muscle tends to get quite overactive, and I guarantee you'll find some trigger points in there. And if you rotate to the outside of the leg, vastus lateralis, almost pushing towards the IT band, you're definitely going to find some trigger points to work through there. Now, if we're looking at foam rolling, I like to take the roller and put it on top of the bench and roll roll my leg on top of the bench with the leg off the side. It just seems to be, for me, easier to get into the muscle, and I can apply more pressure that way as opposed to just laying down. Take your time when you're rolling and leave that roller in those trigger points anywhere between 30 seconds and 3 minutes. It just depends on how long it takes to release those little fascicles that are in there. Moving on to the adductor. The adductor, as opposed to the quadricep and hamstring, is a muscle that might require some ongoing corrective exercise. And the easiest way to create some strength in the adductor is by simply placing a ball or a yoga block in between the knees and isometrically just squeeze as hard as you possibly can for about 10 seconds. So you could do 5-6 reps in several sets of 10-second isometric holds, and you're definitely going to experience some increase in strength in the adductor. Now, for a lot of other people, the adductor tends to be overactive. It's a very tight muscle. So once again, we're talking about stretching. It is next to impossible to get in and do any kind of SMR on the adductor. So really tough to do that. As far as stretching goes, I like to move into a lateral lunge with my foot flat on the floor. Hold that for about 30 seconds, maybe even a minute, and then slowly rotate my toe up so the heel is down. And this is not just adductor complex. This is also starting to move into semitendinosus, semimembranous hamstring heads that are right in there with the adductor inserting into the knee. Great stretch, not the easiest to get into for a lot of people. Next would be just the typical groin stretch. You see this all the time. I don't think people really are performing it correctly. So put your feet together, sit up as tall as you possibly can, pushing your knees down to the floor. Now the trick here, just like in the seated hip stretch I'll show you guys here in a minute, is to pull and extend the spine up. And think about the xiphoid process. The center of the chest is going to move in between the feet. What you don't want to do is break your spine or roll your way, collapsing your spine down into the stretch. This isn't going to really do anything. You want to lift the chest up, extend the spine, and then bring your chest slowly down towards the feet. Another, I wouldn't say easy, but relatively simple stretch to get into the adductor is to take a band, wrap it around the foot, and then laterally let the leg fall to the outside while still trying to hold a relatively neutral hip position. Next, moving on, if we look at the hamstring, gosh, I can't tell you the last time I saw somebody that didn't have overactive hamstring muscles. I firmly believe, I've never seen science on this, but I firmly believe the hamstring is genetically related. If you had parents with back issues, I'll guarantee you had parents that had tight hamstrings and you inherited them. So if you have tight hamstrings, you have back issues. Remember, it's posterior chain, it's all connected. There is no individual muscle group. So stretching is a huge issue. Once again, it is really hard to do foam rolling or self-myofascial release on the hamstring. I will show you a way that you can do it. But as far as stretching in the hamstring, the easiest way would be to begin with a forward fold. Now, once again, before we move into that fold, we want to extend the spine, lift the chest, and then bring that chest forward while extending the hip back. That's going to allow for a deeper stretch, a more integrated stretch that goes from the hamstring through the glutes and up into the spine. The next would be to once again take a band, and this time we want to cross the body. So I'm going to extend one leg that I'm stretching up 90 degrees, take the band and loop it around my foot, and then with that hand I'm going to pull that foot to the other side. Now this is a great bicep femoris stretch. It's one of my absolute favorites. Once you're in the position where the leg is crossed over and moving towards the floor, you now want to activate the quadricep, and you will get a little bit more of a stretch. This is kind of a PNF, propioneural facilitation that's happening, where you're activating the quadricep and it engages, or it makes the hamstring relax a little more. It'll help you stretch a little bit deeper. The next would be to put the band around the top of the foot and just bring it straight up 90 degrees. Once again, we want to lock the quadricep and extend the knee straight into the stretch. All stretching, guys, really needs to happen somewhere around 60 seconds. It takes the GTO, the Golgi tendon organ, in the individual muscle cell about 30 seconds to decide that it wants to stretch, that it's okay to stretch. And if you've had injury or you have very, very tight hamstrings, it'll take you 30 seconds in the stretch for the nervous system alone to decide that it's okay to stretch. And then you need to stretch. So, long story short, it's my belief, and I've seen different studies on this, it's my experience, personal and professional, that we want to hold the stretch for somewhere around 60 seconds. The longer the better. I think you're going to get more results out of it long term. You'll see more neurological adaptation the longer you hold that stretch. Now, as far as SMR is concerned, with the hamstring, I'm showing this with a field hockey ball centered in the middle of my bicep femoris. It's a bit of a small ball for me to be using, but you don't want to use something so big that the hips are off center. You want to use something that moves into the hamstring. You lay the leg on top, apply pressure, and hopefully you'll get some depth, some tension built up from that ball into the hamstring, and some release. And all you want to do is move that ball up and down, trying to find these tight fascicles, tight little trigger points in the hamstring. So lastly, I wanted to get a little bit into the IT band. We will be covering the IT band again in the next video, but I wanted to get into it just a little bit today since we're already in the proximity. The easiest way to stretch the IT band is the seated hip stretch. I teach this to all clients. It's simple to get into. We're mostly sitting anyway. You have an opportunity to do this stretch all day, every day. And once again, we want to do this stretch anywhere between 1 and 2 minutes. The easiest way to do this is to just sit up really tall, take the leg, cross it over, hold the ankle and the knee, and gently apply pressure to the knee until the knee or the tibia is parallel to the floor. Now we want to extend the spine straight up and bring the chest slowly out towards the tibia or shin, center position. So you want the center of your chest moving towards the center of the leg, and we want to maintain a parallel position with the shin or tibia. Very important. For many people, you're probably not going to be able to do that right away. The tibia may be sitting at a 45-degree incline, so just crossing the leg and getting your leg to be parallel to the floor could be quite a challenge. But this is a great stretch. We're starting to get into modifications or progressions of the pigeon pose, which we'll be getting into in the next video. But this is a great stretch. I teach it to everybody. Try it at home. Next would be SMR for the IT band. Again, you can attack it with a stick. It's a great way, especially to get to the distal end of the IT band above the knee. I feel like is best affected with a stick, but also a foam roller. In this case, the rumble roller, I think, is the better way to go. It's not the easiest position to get into, however. So take the leg that you're going to be rolling and lay it directly on top of the roller. And I like to start up into the hip and work my way down. The other leg or free leg is crossed over, and we're supporting our body with 3 points of contact, and that would be the free leg, the foot of the free leg, and 2 hands. You can also work your way down to kind of a side plank position on your forearm and roll around like that. But it's really based on how much pressure or how much body weight you feel comfortable with putting on that roller. And remember, when you find those trigger points, you want to hold it anywhere between 30 seconds and 3 minutes until you feel a release or the trigger point has been slowly released. I hope you guys are deriving some benefit from these, and you're able to get a foam roller, get one at home, get a dowel rod, go to Home Depot and spend 50 cents and get a dowel rod. Trust me, it will be worth it, and you're going to want one around. Thanks for watching S2TV.